You heard it before you smelled it. Aluminum foil peeling back from a tray that just came out of the oven, and the whole house smells like something between Thanksgiving and a school cafeteria, and you are 8 years old, and the television is already on, and this is the best night of the week, TV dinner night. The turkey never touched the peas never touched the potatoes, and in the corner of that tray there was a brownie you were saving for last. 10 million sold the first year. The original tray ended up in the Smithsonian right next to Fonzie's leather jacket. And you forgot it ever existed until just now. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. The tray came out of the oven and your mother set it on the metal folding table in front of you. She said, "Be careful, it is hot." You touched it anyway because you were a child, and that is what children do, and you burned your finger on the edge of the aluminum and pulled your hand back, and then you forgot about it completely because Bonanza was starting, or Gunsmoke was on, or Ed Sullivan had somebody you wanted to see. The food was right there in front of you on a tray that was also a plate. That was also a table setting that required no dishes and no silverware other than a fork. You ate with your family in the living room, not at the dining room table, not in the kitchen, in the living room, in the glow of the television, with the volume turned up just enough that your father could hear it over the sound of everyone eating. That was the ritual. 4 trays, 4 forks, 1 television. Nobody talked much because the show was on, and nobody needed to, because this was not a night for conversation. This was a night for not cooking and not cleaning and not doing anything except sitting together and eating something hot while watching something good. You remember which one was yours. Everyone had their dinner. Your father always got the Salisbury steak. Your mother got the turkey. Your brother wanted fried chicken every single time and threw a fit if they were out of it at the store. You probably got the turkey too, or maybe the meatloaf. You remember that the meatloaf had a dark brown sauce that pooled in the bottom of the compartment and ran onto the corn, and you did not mind because it actually tasted better that way. The potatoes were not real potatoes. You knew that even then. They came from powder, and they had a texture that was somewhere between mashed and paste. There was a small square of butter on top that melted into a yellow puddle in the center. The vegetables were soft in a way that real vegetables are not. The peas were the color of a crayon. The corn had a sweetness that did not come from a field, and none of it mattered. None of it mattered because the food was not the point. The food was never the point. The point was that tonight nobody had to do anything. Your mother did not have to stand in the kitchen for an hour. Your father did not have to wait. You did not have to set the table or clear the table or wash the table. You peeled the foil, you ate, you threw the tray away, and the night was yours. That was the revolution, not the food, the freedom. And the one thing everybody remembers, the thing that united every single child who ever ate a TV dinner in the history of this country, a PEA in the mashed potatoes. It always happened. No matter how carefully the factory filled those compartments, no matter how neatly the foil sealed them, somehow during the 25 minutes in that oven, at least one pea migrated from its section into the potato section, and you found it there sitting in the middle of the white like a small green intruder. You either ate it without thinking, or you picked it out with your fork and flicked it onto the tray, and either way, it is one of the most universal tiny memories in American life. If you are over 50 years old and you ate TV dinners, you are nodding right now. Now here's the part that most people have never heard. The TV dinner exists because of a mistake. A massive, spectacular, almost unbelievable mistake involving 260 tons of frozen turkey and 10 refrigerated trains that could not stop moving. It starts with a man who could not speak English. Carl Swanson was born in 1879 in a small city in southern Sweden called Karlskrona. In 1896, at 17 years old, he came to America. He arrived with a tag around his neck. A piece of paper on a string said, "Carl Swanson, Swedish, send me to Omaha. I speak no English." That is not a legend. That is what happened. A boy who could not say a word in the language of the country he had just entered was sent by tag to a city in Nebraska, where other Swedes had settled in a neighborhood they called Little Stockholm. He worked on a farm. He got a job hauling eggs and cream from local farmers to hotels and grocery stores in Omaha with a horse and a wagon. By 1905, he owned the company. By the 1930s, it was one of the largest creameries in the United States. During the war, it became a major supplier of poultry and eggs to the military, and the company grew from $9 million a year to $43 million in 4 years. He renamed it C.A. Swanson & Sons. In 1949, Carl Swanson died, and his two sons, Gilbert and Clark, took over everything their father had built. The Swanson name in Omaha was what DuPont was in Wilmington, what Chandler was in Los Angeles. They were the family. And 2 years after taking over the company, the brothers launched frozen chicken pot pies and sold millions of them, and everything was going perfectly. Until Thanksgiving, 1953. Somebody at Swanson made a catastrophic miscalculation about how much turkey America wanted that year. The answer was a lot less than Swanson had prepared. The company was sitting on 260 tons of frozen turkey, 520,000 pounds of bird that nobody had bought. The turkeys were in 10 refrigerated railroad cars, and here's the part that makes this story almost impossible to believe. The refrigeration system on those cars only worked when the trains were moving. If the train stopped, the turkeys would thaw, and 260 tons of poultry would spoil. So Swanson did the only thing they could do. They kept the trains running back and forth between Nebraska and the East Coast. 10 trains full of frozen turkeys rolling across America, while panicked executives in Omaha tried to figure out what on earth they were going to do with all of it. What they did changed how America eats. A Swanson salesman named Jerry Thomas, who made $200 a month, had recently visited a warehouse in Pittsburgh where a company made aluminum trays for airline meals. 3 compartments. Meat in one, vegetable in another, starch in the third. Simple, practical. Thomas looked at those trays, and he looked at the 260 tons of turkey rolling back and forth on trains, and he saw the answer. Fill the trays with turkey and cornbread stuffing and frozen peas and sweet potatoes. Seal them with foil. Freeze them. Sell them in grocery stores as a complete meal you could heat in your oven in 25 minutes. The Swanson brothers ordered 5,000 trays. They thought it might work. Maybe. They were not prepared for what happened next. In the first full year, they sold 10 million. The year after that, 25 million. By the late 50s, Swanson was selling 13 million a year under the new owner, Campbell's Soup Company, which bought the entire operation in 1955 for a block of stock. And here is the genius of the marketing. The trays were not called frozen dinners, they were called TV dinners. The cardboard box was designed to look like a television set, complete with fake dials on the side. In 1953, only about half of American homes had a television. By 1960, 90% did. The television was the most exciting object in the house, and Swanson attached its product to that excitement. You were not eating a cheap frozen meal, you were eating something modern, something connected to the future. The advertisements showed stylish women in smart outfits with the tagline, "I am late, but dinner will not be." It was designed to make a mother feel free rather than guilty. And it worked because it was true. For the first time in history, a woman could come home from work and not stand in the kitchen for an hour. She could open the freezer, slide 4 trays into the oven, set the timer, and sit down with her family in front of the television. No preparation, no dishes, no guilt. 98 cents each when they first came out, eventually dropping to 59 cents and then lower. By the early 70s, you could get a Morton fried chicken dinner at Kroger for 25 cents, a complete hot meal for a quarter. You could not feed a family cheaper any other way. The tray kept getting better. In 1960, Swanson added a fourth compartment and put dessert in it, apple cobbler or a brownie. That was a big deal. Suddenly, the TV dinner was not just dinner, it was dinner with dessert. They added fried chicken and Salisbury steak and spaghetti and meatloaf, and by the mid-60s they had international dinners with German and Mexican and Italian and Chinese options. In 1969, they launched TV breakfasts, which meant your children could eat reheated eggs while watching Sesame Street. In 1973, they introduced the Hungry Man dinner with double portions and got Mean Joe Green from the Pittsburgh Steelers to sell them on television. The ad said, "If you have got a man who eats like there is no tomorrow, give him a Swanson Hungry Man dinner tonight." Look, not one but two Salisbury steaks and brown onion gravy. By the peak years, Swanson was selling 160 million dinners a year. And then the world changed. The microwave oven entered American kitchens in the late 70s and early 80s, and it should have been the best thing that ever happened to the TV dinner. Instead, it nearly ended it. Swanson's trays were aluminum. You cannot put aluminum in a microwave. Every competitor switched to plastic and paper trays almost immediately. Swanson held on to their foil trays for years after the market had moved on. By the time Campbell finally introduced microwave-safe packaging in 1986, it was already too late. Lean cuisine had launched in 1981. Healthy Choice came out in 1988. Stouffer's was offering meals that actually tasted like someone had cooked them. And all of them worked in the microwave while Swanson was still asking you to heat their dinner in a conventional oven for 25 minutes like it was 1957. The health-conscious 80s and 90s made it worse. Too much sodium, too many preservatives, too little that resembled real food. A New York Times food critic wrote in 1977 that TV dinner consumers had no taste. The words stung because they were partly true and everybody knew it. The TV dinner went from being modern and exciting to being a symbol of laziness and low standards. The cultural position flipped completely. In the 50s, eating a TV dinner meant you were keeping up with the times. By the 90s, it meant you had given up. Swanson changed hands 4 times after Campbell. First, it went to Vlasic Foods, which went bankrupt in 2001. Then it went to Pinnacle Foods. Then it went to Conagra Brands, which owns it today. Each transfer diluted the identity a little more. The name TV dinner was dropped from the packaging in 1962. It was brought back briefly in the late 90s with retro packaging that had fake wood paneling and television dials on the box, and then it faded again. You can still buy a Swanson dinner in the frozen section of most supermarkets. Hungry Man is still there too. But Swanson holds roughly 10% of a market it once defined entirely. The rest belongs to brands that did what Swanson refused to do: adapt, change the menu, respect the microwave, acknowledge that people wanted their frozen food to actually taste good. But I do not think that is why it disappeared from your memory. I think it disappeared because the ritual disappeared. The TV dinner was never really about the food, it was about the night. The specific night when your mother said, "Not cooking tonight," and you knew exactly what that meant. It meant the metal trays came out of the corner. It meant the oven went on at 425. It meant you sat in the living room with your family and you ate something hot off an aluminum tray that you would throw away when you were done, and nobody had to wash a single dish. That ritual required 4 things: a family, a living room, a television everyone watched together, and a meal that arrived in a tray that was both the container and the plate. All 4 of those things have fractured. Families eat at different times now. Everyone has their own screen. Nobody watches the same show at the same hour on the same night. And the meal that comes in the plastic tray goes into the microwave for 3 minutes and gets eaten standing at the kitchen counter alone. It is still a frozen dinner, but it is not a TV dinner. The experience is gone even if the product still exists. The original aluminum tray is in the Smithsonian Institution. It sits right next to Fonzie's leather jacket from Happy Days. In 1997, they put Jerry Thomas's handprints in the cement outside Mann's Chinese Theater in Hollywood next to one of those trays. In 1999, the TV dinner tray got its own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. A frozen meal in a tin pan got the same honor they give to movie stars. That tells you everything about what it meant to this country. Somewhere in your childhood, there is a night you have almost forgotten. The trays are out, the oven is warm, the foil is peeling back with that crinkle that sounds like nothing else in the world. The television is on and the volume is just right, and your whole family is in the same room eating the same meal at the same time without anyone having to cook or clean or do anything at all. Your father has the Salisbury steak, your mother has the turkey, you have something with a brownie in the corner that you are saving for last. And there is a pea in your mashed potatoes and you do not care. You do not care about anything. You are warm and full and the show is good and everyone you love is right there and nobody is going anywhere. That is what a TV dinner was. Not food, a feeling. And the feeling is gone and the tray is in a museum and the only thing left is that sound, that crinkle. If you close your eyes, you can still hear it. If you remember TV dinner night, tell me what your family watched. If you had a favorite dinner, tell me which one. If you always save the dessert for last, tell me I am not the only one. I read every single comment.